The chamber of the Galactic Council was built to inspire fear. Its walls were black stone, its ceiling a dome filled with the cold glow of stars. Leaders of 100 species sat in silence, their voices cut off as the warning sirens echoed through the chamber. Something unusual had appeared on the edge of their galaxy, something that none of them wanted to believe was real. The Zaran speaker, a tall figure with silver scales, broke the silence first. His voice trembled as he read the message from their deep space scouts. "It is not possible. The humans cannot have these ships." His words hung heavy in the chamber. The others shifted nervously in their seats. The human race had always been dismissed as weak, as a child among empires. They were considered reckless, fragile, too divided to build anything of power. But now the images shown on the projection before them burned into every eye. They saw vast, sleek vessels moving in formation, their metallic surfaces shining like blades under distant suns. Lines of glowing blue light ran along their hulls, pulsing with an energy the council did not understand. The councilors leaned forward, whispering to each other in disbelief. "Are they stolen ships?" one asked. "Did humans find some ancient ruin?" asked another. None of them could explain how a world once seen as helpless now commanded a fleet that rivaled the oldest powers of the galaxy. At the center of the chamber, the High Chancellor rose. His 6 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of unease in his species. "We have monitored the humans for centuries. Their technology should be primitive. Their fleets should be fragile. And yet..." He turned toward the display, where a human battleship cut through a field of asteroids like a predator gliding through water. "This is what we face." The silence grew heavy again. Every leader in that hall understood what this meant. Humanity was not supposed to have ships like these. It was not part of the order the galaxy had agreed upon. When humans had first reached the stars, the Council had placed heavy limits on them, forcing them to use outdated drives, old weapons, and weak shields. The humans had been watched carefully, kept under control, made to feel small. That was how it was meant to stay, and yet somehow it had not. The speaker slammed his hand against the table. "If humans rise unchecked, they will spread like fire. Their hunger for survival will burn through every system. We must act now before their fleet grows any larger." His voice was sharp, but there was fear beneath his words. Another voice spoke, lower and steadier. The ambassador of the Luthari leaned forward, her pale eyes glowing faintly. "You speak of stopping them, but look closely at these ships. Do you not see? They are beyond even our newest fleets. Their shields bend light itself. Their weapons break matter into dust. Tell me, speaker, how do you plan to fight what you do not understand?" The chamber filled with noise again. Some shouted for war, others for diplomacy, others still whispered of retreat. The sound of panic was louder than any order. But above their noise, the image of the human fleet remained. Cold, silent, unstoppable. The projection shifted to show Earth itself. It was no longer the fragile blue world that the Council had once mocked. Around it hung the great shipyards of humanity, silent rings of steel producing weapons faster than spies could report. Shadows of new vessels drifted among the shipyards, their designs hidden, their power unknown. For a long moment, no one spoke. The truth was impossible to deny. The galaxy had prepared for human defiance, for rebellion, for small wars that could be crushed quickly. But this was different. This was a storm no one had expected. The High Chancellor's voice finally returned, but it was softer now, as though he already knew the outcome. "The galaxy shook the day humans built these ships, and it will shake again when they decide to use them." A young delegate from a minor system dared to ask the question that all feared. His voice quivered as it echoed in the chamber. If humans were never meant to have ships like these, who gave them the knowledge to build them? The question froze the room, because no one had an answer. Some whispered of ancient machines buried on dead worlds. Others claimed humans had bargained with forgotten powers hidden in the dark between galaxies. A few even believed the humans had done it themselves, using nothing but their stubborn will and endless drive. Whatever the truth, it no longer mattered. The proof was already there, gliding silently across the void. Outside, in the endless dark, the fleet of humanity moved as one. The ships did not boast or roar. They did not send messages or declare their purpose. They only advanced, their blue lights glowing against the black of space, their engines burning like cold fire. Every empire in the galaxy felt it. Fear. For the first time in centuries, The balance of power was breaking. Humanity, once mocked as too small and too weak, now held the future in its hands. The chamber that had always been filled with arrogant voices now echoed with silence. The galaxy's leaders sat frozen, staring at the impossible truth before them. The humans had ships they were never supposed to have. Ships that could not be explained. Ships that could not be ignored. And as the fleet drew closer, one thought settled into every mind. This was only the beginning. Whispers in the council. The council chamber did not calm. Even after the images of the human fleet faded, the fear remained. It was no longer the sharp panic of first discovery, but a deeper unease that pressed on every mind present. They all understood the same truth. The humans had broken free from the chains placed upon them, and no one knew how. The Zaran speaker leaned back in his chair, claws tapping against the surface of the black stone table. His voice carried a thin edge, brittle with disbelief. They were not ready. They could not have built this alone. Someone guided them. His words were not meant for agreement, but for planting doubt. Around the chamber, murmurs rose. The counselors leaned closer to their aides, speaking in tongues and whispers, their words carrying fragments of fear. Ancient vaults, forbidden machines, traitors inside our borders. No whisper sounded the same, but all carried the same weight. Suspicion. The Luthari ambassador kept her pale eyes on the hologram still faintly glowing above the table. Perhaps you speak of outside help, she said quietly. But look closely. These designs are not alien. They are human. The shape, the structure, the brutality in their purpose. This is no gift from a lost empire. This is human will-made steel. Her words silenced the whispers for a moment. They all remembered how humanity had clawed its way through history. Wars on their own soil, blood spilled between their nations, and yet somehow they rose. The galaxy had laughed at them, seeing nothing but chaos and destruction in their early years. But now perhaps that chaos had turned into something else, something sharper, something dangerous. The High Chancellor's 6 eyes scanned the room, watching every leader. We should not be surprised, he said. His voice was slow, heavy with dread. Every empire here has tried to break them. Some have stolen their resources. Others have enslaved their kind on border worlds. And yet they endure. Perhaps endurance was always their weapon. One counselor from the far edges of the Orion Arm spoke with a trembling voice. If they endured, it was because we allowed it. We permitted them their colonies, their mines, their ships. We gave them just enough to believe they had freedom, while ensuring they remained below us. They should not have risen from that leash. He gestured toward the frozen image of a human warship. This should never have happened. The chamber grew tense again. Their whispers returned, but sharper now, like blades sliding from hidden sheaths. Some whispered of preemptive strikes. Others whispered of secret negotiations. A few whispered words no one else dared to say aloud. Surrender. But hidden among the louder voices were smaller murmurs, careful and secret. Delegates from weaker empires, long crushed under the weight of the great powers, whispered with trembling excitement. For centuries they had lived in the shadows of the dominant species. Now perhaps they saw in humanity a storm that could change everything. The ambassador of the Renari, a frail being with wings folded tight against his body, leaned toward his aide and whispered, "If humans can rise, perhaps so can we." His words were not meant for the chamber, but the echo carried far enough to be heard. The counselor beside him stiffened, turning his head sharply, but the thought was already planted. The seed of rebellion had been sown, and humanity was its soil. The High Chancellor raised his hand, calling for silence once more. The echoes of whispers faded reluctantly, like shadows retreating from light. "We stand at a choice," he said. "War will bring ruin. Diplomacy may bring humiliation. But if we remain divided, humanity will move while we argue, and when they do, it will be too late." The Zaran speaker's voice cut through, sharp and venomous. "And you propose what? To kneel before them? To invite humans to sit in this hall as equals?" His words burned with fury. To him, the very idea was poison. The Luthari ambassador did not look away from the human ship. Her voice remained calm, steady. "Perhaps not equals, but do you not see? The galaxy shook today. If we pretend it did not, if we act as though humanity is still bound by our limits, we will break ourselves before they even strike. I tell you this, if they can build ships like these, they can break empires like ours." A ripple of unease spread across the chamber. Even the proudest rulers lowered their gaze. No one wanted to admit it, but deep in their hearts they knew the truth. The old balance was gone. Whispers continued long into the night, echoing down the cold halls of the council building. Whispers of betrayal, of desperate alliances, of hidden plans. But no matter what was said, no one could erase the image of the fleet from their minds. And in the silence between whispers, a new thought began to form, unspoken yet undeniable. What if humanity no longer feared them? The chamber emptied slowly. Delegates departed with heavy steps, each carrying fear back to their worlds. And above, far beyond the reach of their words, the human fleet drifted closer, silent and patient. The galaxy did not yet know the full measure of humanity's power, but it would soon. While the council's chamber echoed with fear and whispers far away, Earth turned in silence beneath its sun. To the galaxy, it was still a fragile blue world, home to a species that should have remained small. But those who looked closer would see the truth. Humanity had been building something no one else could imagine. Decades earlier, when humanity first reached the stars, they had been mocked. Their ships were clumsy, their weapons weak, their colonies starved of resources. Alien overseers imposed strict limits on what humans could mine, what they could trade, what they could build. The empires had thought themselves wise. They believed the leash would hold. But humans were a species shaped by struggle. The harder the chains pulled, the stronger their will became. Hidden in the asteroid belts of Sol, great foundries burned in secret. These were not the noisy exposed stations the council monitored, but silent fortresses carved into the rock itself. To an outside eye, they looked like lifeless stones drifting in orbit. Only those who carried human blood knew the truth. Inside, entire cities worked day and night, forging hulls from alloys the galaxy had never seen. In the shadows of Jupiter's moons, test fleets were assembled. Their drives did not glow with the weak red of old council-approved technology. Instead, they pulsed with a cold blue fire, bending space around them with precision. Scientists whispered to each other of breakthroughs made not by stolen knowledge, but by relentless human invention. Every failure had been studied. Every loss had been recorded. Slowly, piece by piece, the humans built ships that surpassed even their masters. The galaxy believed humans had no allies. That was another mistake. Among the stars, many small races had grown tired of bowing before the great empires. Traders, outlaws, and refugees found a quiet welcome in hidden human colonies. They brought scraps of forbidden technology, whispers of lost science, and above all, the will to resist. Humanity gave them shelter. In return, they gave knowledge. Together, they built something greater than either could alone. On Earth itself, nations once divided by history united under a single cause. Not by choice, not by peace, but by necessity. When faced with survival, humans put aside old battles. Engineers from rival continents worked side by side. Soldiers trained under one banner. For the first time, humanity looked at the stars not as a dream, but as a demand. The first prototypes were disasters. Engines collapsed into molten slag. Weapons tore ships apart from within. Entire crews died testing the unknown. But humanity did not stop. Each failure became a lesson, each loss a stone in the foundation of progress. Where other empires sought perfection before action, humans embraced imperfection, learned from it, and moved forward. One ship in particular became the symbol of their hidden rise. Its name was whispered only among the crews who built it, the Aegis. It was not the largest ship in the fleet, nor the most heavily armed, but it was the first to prove humanity had stepped beyond the limits of the council. Its shields bent incoming fire until it vanished. Its railguns struck with a speed that shredded matter itself. And when it returned from its first trial, scarred but unbroken, the workers who greeted it did not cheer. They wept. They knew the balance had shifted. Human leaders kept the secret close. They allowed the galaxy's spies to see scraps, old models, false designs. They sacrificed weaker ships in small skirmishes to make their enemies believe they were still weak. Every illusion was carefully woven. And while the empires mocked, humanity's true fleet grew in the dark. In the deep archives of Earth, historians would one day write that humanity's greatest weapon was not steel or fire, but patience. While the galaxy watched, humans pretended to stumble. While the galaxy mocked, humans pretended to bow. All the while, the storm was building. Now, as the fleet glided silently across the void, every rivet, every scar, every secret alliance spoke of the path humanity had taken. It was not luck. It was not stolen power. It was the result of endless struggle, hidden from the eyes of those who thought themselves untouchable. Back in the council chamber, some whispered that humans must have discovered ancient machines. Others believed they had been gifted technology by powers outside the galaxy. But the truth was far simpler and far more terrifying. Humanity had built this with their own hands. The fleet was not a miracle. It was a warning. And deep within those ships, human captains stood ready, their eyes fixed on the horizon of stars. They carried not only weapons, but memories. Of wars fought on their own soil, of empires that had enslaved their kind, of countless voices silenced by alien cruelty. Now those voices spoke again, through the roar of engines, through the glow of impossible shields. The path had been hidden, yes, but it had always been there, carved by survival itself. As the first human fleet spread beyond Sol, their presence was felt across nearby systems. Small colonies that had once been abandoned now reported strange lights in the sky. Alien patrols vanished near the edge of human space. Traders whispered of ships that moved faster than thought. The rumors grew, ignored at first, then feared. And still humanity said nothing, for silence was its own weapon. The galaxy would soon learn that the humans had walked a path no one else dared to tread. And once walked, it could not be undone. The test of power. The first encounter happened on the edge of a forbidden system. It was a barren place, a dying star wrapped in fields of ice and dust, watched over by patrols of the Council's armada. No one expected history to begin here in a place so empty, yet history often chose silence for its stage. The patrol fleet was led by the Varen Dominion, a proud empire whose ships had long been used to crush rebellions before they grew too large. Their cruisers drifted in formation, each bristling with heavy cannons and shield generators. They were confident, even bored. To them this was routine. Humanity had been spotted moving vessels into restricted space. The mission was simple: intercept, capture, and remind Earth who ruled the stars. When the first human ship appeared, the patrol laughed. It was smaller than their command carrier, sleek in design, its surface glowing faintly with pale blue lines. It moved without haste, as if unaware of the danger. The Dominion's admiral ordered the fleet to surround it, confident that one ship could be broken quickly. Then a second ship appeared. And a third. Then dozens more, sliding from the dark like shadows peeling away from night. The human fleet took shape with precision, every vessel moving in silence. No chatter across the channels, no declarations of intent. They did not need to speak. Their presence was enough. The admiral sneered at the display. Primitive tricks, he spat, before ordering his fleet to fire. The void lit with fire as Dominion cannons thundered. Bolts of red energy streaked toward the humans, the same blast that had shattered countless foes before. But when the fire struck the human shields, it bent. The energy curved and faded, vanishing like smoke and wind. Not a single human ship slowed. Panic rippled through the Dominion lines. Captains demanded answers. Engineers scrambled to measure what had just happened. No system in their archives could explain why their weapons had failed. Before their questions were answered, the humans replied. From the front line of the fleet, railguns roared. Bright streaks of metal tore through the void, moving faster than sight, striking Dominion ships with impossible force. Shields crumpled, armor folded. In seconds, 3 cruisers were ripped apart, their hulls breaking into fire and debris. The silence of space swallowed the screams of their crews. The admiral barked orders, trying to restore formation, but it was useless. Every Dominion vessel that turned its weapons on the humans fell in moments. Their beams slid off human shields like water on glass. Their counterfire shattered hulls, precise and merciless. One Dominion captain, desperate to strike back, ordered his ship to ram. Engines flared as the heavy cruiser surged forward, aiming to crush the smaller human vessel in its path. The human ship did not turn aside. Its surface lit with a glow brighter than before, a sudden burst of energy that bent space around it. When the Dominion cruiser struck, it shattered as though colliding with a star. Fragments scattered across the void, silent proof of failure. The battle did not last an hour. It did not even last minutes. In less time than it took for the Council to send a full report, the Dominion fleet had been erased. And yet, the most terrifying part was not the destruction itself. It was the silence. The humans did not celebrate. They did not broadcast threats or send messages of victory. They simply moved forward past the wreckage, their formation unbroken. Their purpose was not to destroy one fleet. Their purpose lay deeper in the systems beyond. Across the galaxy, reports spread like wildfire. Councils received fragmented transmissions. Cries for reinforcements cut short, ships vanishing without explanation, Dominion channels falling into static. Soon the truth arrived. The fleet had been destroyed and humanity had not lost a single ship. In the great halls of alien empires, leaders sat frozen as they listened. They had prepared themselves for human defiance, for uprisings, for desperate strikes that could be crushed. But this was no rebellion. This was conquest. On Earth, the news did not spread to the common people. The leaders chose silence, knowing the storm had only begun. In the hidden shipyards, workers watched the stars with quiet pride. The test had been passed. Humanity's weapons had proven themselves. The galaxy's chains had been broken. Yet not every human felt triumph. In the command decks of the fleet, captains stared at the wreckage drifting around them. They did not speak of glory. They spoke of cost. They remembered the years of struggle, the lives lost in experiments, the sacrifices that had brought them here. Their silence was not arrogance, but weight. They knew what came next. The galaxy would not forgive. Far across the stars, the council met again in emergency. No longer whispers, but shouts filled the chamber. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others cried for surrender before more fleets were lost. A few leaders turned pale as they realized their own empires might be the next target. But through the chaos, one truth became clear. The humans had proven their power. The test of strength was over. The war for the galaxy had begun. The smoke of the Dominion fleet still drifted across the stars when the messages reached the council. Each transmission was short, broken by static and fear. Captains crying out, shields failing, weapons useless. Then silence. One fleet gone. Another line of defense erased. And in its place, the human fleet moved on untouched, their formation like a knife cutting deeper into forbidden space. The council gathered again, but this time the chamber no longer held its former power. Where once voices had been loud with arrogance, now they cracked with panic. The High Chancellor stood at the center, but even his 6 eyes betrayed fear. He did not speak with the authority of command, but with the weight of desperation. The Dominion fleet was not weak, he said. It was not careless. It was crushed. And if humanity can do this once, they can do it again. Do not lie to yourselves. Every empire in this hall is vulnerable. The words struck the chamber like stones thrown into still water. Ripples of dread spread outward. Leaders who had once mocked Earth now looked at each other with wide eyes, calculating how long their own fleets would survive. The Zaran speaker rose, his silver scales catching the light. Rage burned in his voice, but it was a thin mask stretched over terror. Then we unite. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We burn them before their fire spreads, crush them now before their fleet multiplies. Some cheered at his words, but most shifted uneasily. The Luthari ambassador stood next, her pale gaze cold. Unite? You speak of unity. Yet for centuries you have enslaved the weaker among us. You call for us to fight humans together, but half this chamber has already thought of running to their side. Her words cut deep, because they were true. Already whispers had spread across the stars. Small empires, long oppressed, now saw in humanity a storm that might shatter the chains of the great powers. Some secretly sent envoys toward human colonies. Others began to prepare revolts against their masters. The galaxy was splitting, cracks running like lightning through its foundation. The Renari delegate, his wings trembling against his back, spoke softly, but every word carried weight. Perhaps we should not fear them. Perhaps it is time to join them. If humans have risen beyond us, then maybe we should accept the new order before it crushes us. The chamber erupted into chaos. Shouts filled the dome. Betrayal, treachery, surrender, war. No two voices agreed. Old enemies shouted at each other, forgetting their centuries of alliances. Threats filled the air as if the chamber itself would split. Outside, beyond the council's walls, the galaxy was already trembling. Border worlds where humans had once been enslaved erupted in riots. Colonies that had sworn loyalty to the great powers suddenly went silent, their banners torn down, their messages filled with human symbols. Trade routes collapsed as ships vanished into human-controlled zones. The galaxy's rulers, once so certain of their power, now watched their empires fracture. Fleets that had kept order now refused commands, afraid of facing human warships. Armies stationed on distant planets broke ranks, their soldiers whispering that humans could not be stopped. And still the human fleet advanced. Every system it passed through fell into silence. Sometimes there were battles, but they lasted only minutes before fleets broke apart and retreated. Other times entire garrisons surrendered without firing a shot, leaving their weapons floating in the void. The humans did not conquer with speeches. They conquered with inevitability. The galaxy was not only shattered by force, but by fear. Fear moved faster than ships, faster than weapons. It spread in whispers, in glances, in silences. It reached places the fleet had not yet gone, planting doubt before the first shot was fired. In one distant capital, an emperor of an old empire sat in his throne hall, listening to the reports. He had ruled for 3 centuries, his fleets unchallenged. But when the name of Earth was spoken, he felt the same shiver as every other ruler. He whispered to his advisors, "We built this galaxy on fear. Now fear has turned against us." Back in the council, the High Chancellor tried to restore order, but his voice was drowned in the storm. Some leaders demanded peace talks. Others screamed for war. Some simply fell silent, their minds already broken by the truth. And in the silence between arguments, a new fear grew, not just of humanity's ships, but of what they represented. For if humans, once mocked as weak and small, could rise so far, then no order, no empire, no tradition was safe. The galaxy itself had been proven fragile. The old laws had been shattered. The old powers had been broken. What remained was a new truth, as heavy as the void itself. Humanity was not supposed to command ships like these. But they did, and now the galaxy belonged to them.